Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Practice Perfection web-based education series. I'm Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome to the Practice Perfection stage Barbara Herzog. She is here today to share with us information and best practices on fee presentations, that all-important connection you must make with your patients. Barb is joining us from Fort Lauderdale today. Just flew there from Ohio, and we appreciate it very much that you're making time to speak with us while you're in the midst of travels. Barb has been a key member of the dental community for over 30 years, serving variously as practice manager, treatment and financial coordinator, and practice management consultant. She holds a BA in business administration and is certified in dental practice management through the Dental Assisting National Board. She has published articles in the Journal of Clinical Orthodontics, Orthodontic Products, and Practical Hygiene. Barb has, since 1993, lectured at regional and national dental meetings, some of which include Yankee Dental, the American Association of Orthodontists, and the Invisalign Dental Summit. She has helped offices enhance their patient communication, team development, and case and fee presentations. Barb is currently a professional relations manager with Lending Club Patient Solutions, who is underwriting today's presentation. And let me just say on a personal note that as one whose job it is to help practices grow by attracting new patients and helping current patients say yes to the treatment they want, need, and deserve, I know how important it is to present flexible and affordable treatment options in as clear and compelling a manner as possible. It truly is one of the key components to consistent practice growth. And that's why we asked Barb to share her unique insights into patient financing options and how mastery of the tools and the conversation presenting those tools permits the practice to overcome concerns about perceived high fees, accelerate payment, while having your patients thank you for it, and in general, get your patients to say yes to even big-ticket elective procedures. I first became acquainted with Lending Club, which was then known as Springstone Patient Financing, back in 2010, when they agreed to help support a fledgling organization called the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. It has truly been gratifying to witness the growth and development of both entities. Now, thanks to the backing of Lending Club, they have achieved an even economy and market presence while continuing to demonstrate a commitment to their clients' success. As usual, today's event will run for 90 minutes. I invite you at any time to submit your questions using the question button on your screen. We will do our very best to get all your questions answered following Barb's presentation, and if we're not able to do that, Barb has graciously offered to follow up with you personally after the presentation. You will, as usual, qualify to receive 1.5 hours of continuing education credit. Please wait to receive an email which you will get by next week with directions on how to apply for your CE. Because, as always, today's presentation is recorded and will be shared, we want you to just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. In other words, do not feel the need to take copious notes, but by all means feel free to submit any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to get to those. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practices if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform it competently. And with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Barb Herzog. Welcome, Barb.
Thank you, Danny, and I want to thank AIM for the opportunity for me to share our message tonight. And I also want to thank all of you who are joining us on the phone for giving us a few hours of your evening. So as Danny said, I have a bit of a background in the dental world, and I think it's important that I share that information with you because I want you all to know that I've walked the walk, talked the talk, and sat on your side of the table for many years, working through financial arrangements and working with patients. But there's no question that I've seen a lot of changes in my days, and these changes just keep happening. So we're seeing changes in latitudes and changes in attitudes, two words that we hear a lot about. But if we really sit back and think about it, the latitude is just the freedom of action or choice that we have working in the office, or that your patients have as well. And the attitude is just that very, and I like to say positive, state of mind or feeling. But keep in mind, as we've all seen, that absolutely nothing remains quite the same. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about a more educated group of patients. You know, some of us, I've worked in dentistry a long time. I'm sure that some of you are newer, maybe have been in a long time as well as I've been. But we have a group of patients who are walking into our offices now, almost telling us how they want to be treated because they've done their homework. And that education's coming from their friends, from their family, and obviously a lot of it online. So they know what they're talking about. And in many cases, they really do know what they're talking about. So we have a group of people, especially with the baby boomers, of patients who are wanting and needing comprehensive treatment. But yet what's going on is we do have patients with limited cash flow. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So you've really got to be ready for that surprise attitude from your patient when you give them that treatment cost, because we know it can hit them pretty hard sometimes. It's often not what they're expecting. But being a team member, you've got to not be afraid to address it, really be willing to relate to it, and most important, establish the value, what they're going to get for that treatment fee, and really talk to them and find a way to help it fit in their budget so they can go ahead with the treatment. Your attitude really has a big impact on how they feel. But you have to step out of your world and your office world and be willing to step in their world and recognize that often there's a tug-of-war of what's going on. Do they want the treatment, or do they want to keep that money that they've worked so hard to earn? Or do they want to have the treatment, or are they really afraid of spending money because something else is going on? You just can't judge because you don't know what's going on. We've all landed in different places for many different reasons. And some of these photos might depict what's going on in your world. So remember that the positive attitude that you have and understanding that you want them to go ahead with treatment can have a big impact on them as well. Think about this. How much would you actually spend on your mouth? Are the things and the fee presentations and the case presentations that you're giving your patients, is it something that you would do? What choice would you actually make? Because remember, that's what your patients are thinking along the way as well. So our agenda for tonight is we're going to talk about 4 things. We're going to start with, why do you even offer a payment plan in your practice? Why do we expect our patients to do something over and above just writing us a check or paying us in cash? Well, basically, we want to remove money as an obstacle for the treatment that the patients need. What they really want is they want to start treatment, and they want it to fit within their budget. So that's going to be with either a low or no initial payment, low monthly payments, again, something that fits in their budget, either low or no interest. But the biggest thing is choices. They don't want to be dictated to how they're going to have to pay. Just as they have the choice what dentist they want to see, you want to give them choices of payment options as well. And you want to make sure that when they walk out of your office, they really feel good about that final decision. They're happy with the plan that they're going with. So when talking about payment options, let's talk about the patients who are coming into your office. So, and again, what I'm talking about is that money aspect, that business money aspect. So we're going to have a group of patients who are going to walk in the office, and they're going to be prepared to pay you. They're going to have that full treatment fee. Then there's going to be a certain group of people who have some money, so it's going to be something to make an initial payment, but they don't have that full treatment fee. There's going to be a group of people who don't have an initial payment. They're walking in, maybe they weren't even sure they were going to need to have dental work done, so they really aren't prepared to pay anything at all because something's going on in their life. And they're frankly people who don't have a down payment, and along with that, they're probably not credit worthy. So what happens to these people? Well, that group who have full treatment, they schedule, and they go ahead and they make a payment in full. Now, the people who have the initial payment, along with those people who have a full treatment fee, might use an outside financing plan or an office payment plan. The people who do not have a down payment definitely are going to use outside financing with the initial payment. And the people who don't have a down payment probably aren't going to start at all, as long as the people who aren't credit worthy. So every patient that walks in your office fits in one of these buckets. So how do we make this work for our patients? This is having effective payment options. And these are the three options that we're going to dig into just a little bit deeper as we go through the next hour or so. We're going to talk about a flexible option, which is the outside financing that we're going to talk about, and then an optional payment in full. And I do want to stress that these options that I'm suggesting, the payment in full option and the office payment plan, are optional. If this isn't something that you're already doing, I'm not saying you have to do this, but it certainly is something that you should think about, and they are optional. So we'll dig into these just a little bit deeper. So by doing this, let's walk through now the 10 essentials of a fee presentation and how this can work in your practice. So the first step I recommend is to use a written presentation form. There's many different fee presentation forms you can use. It can be something that's pre-printed. I've worked with many practices who have something set up on their computer on an Excel document, shall we say, that they can fill in. But the point is to have something that's written to put in front of your patients, not a blank piece of paper. When people have something in front of them, people are very visual. So they're going to look at it and they're going to follow it as well as listening. It's going to be much clearer to them in the options and the choices that they have. And the biggest thing is that, the important points are not going to be missed. Because keep in mind, by the time you're doing your fee presentation, at that point in time, they've probably been listening to the doctor and you as well, walking through the clinical piece of the information. So their mind is already full of a lot of things. They really want to know is, what does it cost and can I afford it? So let's make sure they understand every important point of the fee presentation and their options as well. This is also a great form to use to keep your fee presentations be very standardized. So if there are multiple people in your practice who are doing fee presentations, everybody knows that everybody's saying basically the same thing in the same way to patients. It's also helpful for your front desk team if the financial person is talking to a patient and somebody calls on the phone. She or he can certainly go back to that form and answer questions that the patient might have to help them go ahead with treatment if they have any financial questions. It's a great form for the patients to take home as well so that they can discuss it with their significant other in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to pay. And this is also a great form for training. So as you're bringing new people in the office, we know that everybody's saying the same thing and everybody understands exactly how you want the fees presented to your patients. Number 2 is discussing the fees in a suitable location. Now, I know that everybody doesn't have a consult room. If you have a consult room, that's great. But the biggest thing is you want to, when I say get away from the treatment area, it's the treatment area where there are other patients near. Now, if it's necessary for you to discuss at chairside, make sure that it's a private area and out of earshot of other people. The biggest thing is keeping it away from the front desk. So again, in an area that people in the reception room aren't hearing what you're discussing. Because obviously, money is a very sensitive topic, and we want to make sure that it's very private between you and your patient. So a private area is nice, something very professional is nice, and obviously a consult room is just perfect. And again, I'm a big believer on only getting one time to make a first impression. Now, we know that fee presentation isn't always the first time you're talking to the patient. That first impression comes often on that new patient phone call, but also what they're remembering is that first impression, hearing what's it going to cost, and do I want to be in this office, can I afford this, and I want to stay here. You want to make sure that you have the right people in that fee presentation. Again, having the right people can make a big difference. You can have a lengthy conversation, and if you get that blank stare and it's the wrong person, then they're not going to move forward at that time. And I thought it was really interesting to share that 80% of healthcare decisions are made by women in the family. I came out of a a study done in 2013. So as you think about your patients, how often, if you have a male patient, is he not going to make a big decision on a big case and he wants to get home and discuss it with his spouse? So keep that in mind, suggesting on your more comprehensive treatment plan that you have the right people in the room. That can certainly make a big difference as well. Number 3 is to present the most flexible option first, outside financing. Now, I want to start by saying this has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we want all of your patients to choose outside financing. That absolutely has nothing to do with it at all. Offering outside financing first is there very simply to avoid the sticker shock, because outside financing typically is going to offer your patients an option with no initial payment and a low monthly payment that they know is going to fit within their budget. So it's going to make them keep listening to you. As soon as they hear no initial payment, it's really going to take away the cost as an issue for them starting treatment. You're going to see them relax and breathe and say, oh, I can do this. They're going to keep listening. And it's also more positive for the patients who need it. And what I mean by that is if we offer it as a standard option first instead of as a last resort, then the people who really do need it aren't going to feel like it's something that you're offering because there's nothing else they can do. They're going to feel like it's very standard and something that many of your patients do. It's going to make them feel better about it as well. Number 4 is to present the dollar amount of the monthly payment. So instead of saying 3 months or 12 months or 24 months, give the people the exact dollar amount that they're going to need to pay on a monthly basis, because people think in payment buckets. I don't by any means mean to sound like I'm comparing your doctor's work to a car payment, but think about the average person when they go in to purchase an automobile. They might be thinking they can only buy a Prius and they walk out with a Lexus because they found out that there was a monthly payment that can fit within their budget. So give them that specific dollar amount, and they're going to listen to it and realize, hey, this can fit in my budget. I can make this work. Number 5 is optionally perhaps offer a courtesy for payment in full. Now, I do recommend offering, if you're going to do this, to offer it for cash, check, and credit card. I will speak to offices once in a while who tell me that they don't offer it for credit card because of the fee that a credit card company charges, where in fact that is so minimal now that people will take advantage of that because I don't know about you, but we all like the miles and we all like the points. So it's nice to be able to pay for things, especially larger things, with a credit card.
Barb?
I do suggest, yes.
Excuse me. Can you clarify, though, when you said that the costs for using a credit card is minimal these days, are you saying the interest rate is minimal? Or if people make their payments, because that tends to crank up the cost over time, doesn't it?
No, what I'm talking about is the cost of the credit card for the practice. So in other words, an office would give a courtesy to the patient, shall we say 5% if they've made the payment in full, and a credit card fee can be somewhere between 1 and 2%.
Sure, the merchant fee that the practice is paying is minimal. I understand now.
Exactly, it's the merchant fee. I should have clarified that. Yeah. Thanks, Danny. Exactly.
No, that's quite all right.
So again, whether you're offering this courtesy, let the patient pay it by cash, by check, or by credit card. But again, you want that to happen at the first appointment. It's having them make that decision, make that commitment. If they're going to take advantage of that, it's got to be something that you're going to have them do right away. And again, give people the amount, not just a percentage. So, again, it's a 5% savings for a courtesy of this amount, and give them the total so that people really understand all the facts and the figures and the numbers. And then again, on your office payment plan, this is talking about your office payment plan. I really encourage you to ask for an initial payment. Again, don't negotiate on this. It's what you're asking for in your practice, because if the patient wants to do that, it's going to really indicate that commitment to treatment. And I recommend asking 50% if you're going to do an office payment plan from everyone, with no exceptions. So in other words, if we're going to do an office, we're going to ask for half down and then the balance over a certain period of time. Because keep in mind, by asking for that 50%, typically that's going to cover your lab bill. You're going to have that paid for while you're waiting for the patient to make those payments over a period of a time.
And again, not to compare dental care with car payments or house repairs, but that is pretty standard in most industries and therefore should not come as too much of a surprise or a disappointment to your patients.
And, you know, Danny, that's an interesting statement to make, because I think that sometimes we feel like because we're in healthcare, we forget that there's a business aspect to the practice as well, and that we are giving them a service, just as things you're, again, doing at your house and so forth. It's a service you have expenses attached to as well. So you're not asking anything unusual for them to make that initial payment within that practice before they start treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can't stress this enough, make the math easy. Show that dollar amount in clear numbers, whether you're talking about monthly payments, the payment in full, the bookkeeping courtesy, the initial payment. Just give everybody clear numbers so that everything's very clear to them and they understand exactly what the expectations are for the payment. And it's going, you know, also talking about the optional payment plan is with that initial payment of 50%, I recommend going 60 to 90 days at the max. I think 60 days is perfect. If you want to go to 90 days, you know the patient, you're comfortable with that, I would do no more than 90 days max. And when I say separate the money and the medicine, just because it might take 6 or 8 months to complete that treatment plan doesn't mean you have to spread it out over 6 to 8 months. Or if the patient isn't going to come in every month, maybe they're going to come in today and not again for 6 or 8 weeks, it doesn't mean they don't need to make a payment next month. So you want to make sure that you're very clear to them that if you do an office payment plan, it's the half down, it's 60 or 90 days on the balance, and it's due exactly whether they come in the office or not. I mean, again, it's two different issues, money and medicine.
Barb,
and that's,
you have a lot of experience in the orthodontic specialty, and I don't have anywhere near as much as you have. I'm curious, though. My understanding is that, and maybe this is something you're explicitly recommending they do, is maybe perhaps especially in the orthodontic specialty, but don't they typically allow the patients to pay as they go?
You know, actually, Danny, no. I mean, many, many years ago, that was the case. Actually, many years ago, the typical orthodontic case was 24 months. So a typical payment plan would be in the office over 24 months. Right. Actually, now what is suggested is about 75 to 80% of the suggested treatment plan is the payoff for an orthodontic case. And with the current modalities and technology in the orthodontic world, treatment is less than 24 months in many cases. Right. So, you know, if you have, let's say, let's just go to a 24-month case, I would certainly recommend a payoff in 18 to 20 months. And in orthodontics is where it's really important to separate the money and the medicine, because you don't see an orthodontist every month. So that's exactly what I'm talking about in separating money and medicine. Especially
for them. But it sounds like, would you say then that for those cases that are finished in considerably less than 24 months, that you essentially structure it or stipulate that payment in full be received within 3 quarters, you know, like 75% of the time? It sounds like 20 months versus 24. Okay.
Exactly. If the doctor's suggesting or recommending the case, estimating the case is going to be 24 months, I would recommend a payoff time in 18 to 20 months. That way, if the case does complete early, the office is paid before the braces come off. If the patient misses a payment, which can happen, again, you're building in some flush there to have it paid off in that length of time.
Got it. Very good. Okay.
Great question. Thank you. Number 8 is practice your presentation, and I am absolutely a huge proponent of this. So I know that if we were live together and Danny would have sent out a message and said, well, we're all going to get together on Thursday night and we're going to role play. I can guarantee that not one single person would show up because it's just
everybody's raising their hand. They're saying, "Yay, me first, me now."
You know, as soon as we hear that word role play, it's like, nobody wants to do it. So the reason I have this picture on here of this A+ is I'm sure that there's some of us on the phone that have had little people in our life that come home on Thursday night and they have spelling words. And it's like, Mom or Dad, can you help me with these spelling words? And you do it with them, and the reason that they want to do those spelling words is because they want that A+ the next day. Well, you know what they're really doing? They're really role-playing because they're practicing. They're practicing that so that they get it perfect. And there's absolutely nothing wrong or fearful about you role-playing a fee presentation at all. I encourage every financial person, every treatment coordinator that's explaining treatment to take someone else in the office that doesn't do the job that you do and role play with that team member. Because often the other team members say, what are they talking about in there? Why is it taking them so long? You know, what's going on? So let the team members really hear what you're saying and share with them some of the challenging questions that those patients ask you.
It's an excellent point, Barb. As you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is obviously, as you know, a subject that's near and dear to our heart because we do a lot of coaching on telephone skills. And we come up against the same resistance initially to have people role play. The point that I want to underscore that you made just now, too, though, is you have a gold mine, a wealth of potential in your office by the very fact that many of your team members don't understand what you're doing. And we fall into the habit and danger of doing the same thing over and over again, and because we become so immersed and familiar with the subject, we think that what we're saying is self-evident, and we begin to use jargon and we talk fast. And what a wonderful opportunity for one of your team members to say, wait a minute, I'm losing you, and you get that feedback, which is role play for me is the most efficient and effective way to master communications. And I think the other point that you were making is that the kid that does the spelling test does it because it's fun. They get some sort of a reward. And it's hard to know until you do it, but role play can actually be a lot of fun because you start exchanging stories and experiences, and I call them war stories or dispatches from the front, that is the front desk. And I can put it this way, too. The teams that don't role play do not master the new communications distinctions that we coach. And so that's all I can say is, the only other thing I'll say is that it's got to come from the practitioner, the owner of the practice as well. If they have to be willing to carve out time for the team on paid time and demonstrate their commitment to learning as well by doing this on a regular basis. And then it becomes self-perpetuating because people actually look forward to it.
Danny, excellent points. And actually, I think that you brought up something else. To me, there are actually three different people, or shall we say groups, to role play. It's with your team members, and part of your team absolutely starts at the top with the doctor. So role playing with the doctors is that the doctor hears and understands what you're saying. The other group, yes, I think is really important and helpful to new people in this role is to role play with a family member, a spouse, a parent, someone you live with, a sibling. You know, they might say to you, what do you do all day long? You know, why do you come home so exhausted? Why do you come home so stressed? What happened? And sit down to them and present a case to them and let them be that patient asking those challenging questions. It's going to make you feel so much more comfortable. And also along with this is don't be afraid to look at your schedule for the next couple of days, and you're looking at, you know, a couple of days out and you're going, oh my gosh, Mrs. Jones is coming in. Oh, do you guys remember? Oh, she was so difficult when she came in. Oh, this is just such a, and all of a sudden you tense up. And so think about what she might say and walk through that and be prepared to speak with her, because it's going to make your attitude be so much more positive than if you just faced it with that very negative attitude going in.
That is a really excellent point, Barb, because if you have, that's like intelligence. You know, if you know who's coming in and you know that person, why not prepare? The the more prepared you are, the more confident you are, and the more competent, and the more successful. I think that's an excellent point. That part of the huddle or whatever you do on a daily or weekly basis, when you look at the weekend prospect, think about them in terms of their communication style, their experience with you and your experience with them, so that you can be prepared for it. That's an excellent point, Barb.
And along with that, if you've never presented a big fee or it's the first time you're presenting a really large case, you definitely want to practice that. And I'm going to go back many, many years, the first time I presented a case, and some of you might laugh when you hear this, but it was $4,000. And I looked at that fee and I thought, I can't look at that patient. Am I just going to go? And that I really had to make sure I could say $4,000. So all of these things can make a big difference in your comfort level, and again, making your attitude come across very great to the patient. This is also going to help you be scripted. You're going to have very common things that you're going to say, but you don't want to sound phony. You don't want to sound like a used car salesman. You want to sound very professional, and the more you practice it and having the right words and hearing the right words from other people are going to help you really define some of those standard phrases and some of those descriptions of the treatment that you're giving. And don't forget that all.
I like to share this or the analogy when I talk about scripts, because most people, they either say, just give me the script, as though it's a gold key that's going to unlock everybody's wallet, or I don't want to read a script. And the truth is actually in between, except that when I say scripts, I really mean more like guidelines or cheat sheets. The analogy that I like to use is an actor. Some of the most memorable phrases, they're part of our cultural zeitgeist, are movie lines that people can just recite and they know the movie. And when you think about it, at some point, that was a written script on a page that a screenwriter handed to the actor and said, do it. Well, that actor, the first necessary but not sufficient step toward making us believe and remember and feel what he or she said was to memorize not so much the words, but the meaning behind the words, and some of the words to be sure, but the order of the words. It's like memorizing the story and saying, okay, I've got it. I know what I'm going to do now. Now it's time for me to put some meat on those bones, to start thinking about feeling and inflection and confidence. As you said, if you're afraid to say $4,000, it doesn't matter how polished your presentation is. People are going to get the sense that you're not comfortable with that, and if you're not comfortable, they won't be comfortable. So again, it's how you say it as well as what you say, but you've got to know what to say. And there's no substitute really for practice and a little bit of memorization. And then once you know the deal, you can start to allow your own personality and shine through. But that can't come until you really understand what you're saying, why you're saying it, and the order in which it needs to be said.
Yes, it's actually a great, fun monthly or staff meeting to have. You know, it's just to grab a couple of random charts and hand them off to people, and you'll get a lot of laughter. You'll have a little fun with it, but it's also a great learning experience as well.
Yeah, nervous laughter at first, and then you really do have fun with it.
Absolutely. Because remember in giving these presentations, and I just think this is just so important, is it really doesn't matter how much you know about your patient's speech that's going to make them want to schedule in your office. It's really about how much you care and you understand their life. And that's where that listening comes into place. That's where the whole thing comes together. It's you living in their world. I mean, we walk in the office in the morning. We really want the patients to live in our world. We really have to live in their world, and that's what can make a difference. Keep in mind that your dental IQ is totally secondary to your chairside manner. Absolutely. It's how you treat them. It's how you make them feel. Number 9 is presenting with enthusiasm and confidence. Again, you know, make them feel good. I think we were just talking about that in the role play. Let them know that you can remove those financial roadblocks. You know, don't talk about, you know, if they're going to have talk treatment. Talk about when they're going to have treatment. Your tone of voice, your body language speaks so loudly. And I also want to say that this has to do with time of day. I mean, I've worked with practices that start treatment start patients at 6:30 in the morning, and we know that we have people who work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So remember, that 6:30 in the morning patient, that patient at noon, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever time it is, deserves equal enthusiasm from you. If you're tired in the morning and you're tired at night, that's really going to come across. You've got to have that same positive smile with that patient and always assume that their answer is going to be yes. If your doctor indicates that treatment is necessary, you want to walk into that room saying, geez, are they going to, don't think, geez, are they going to do this? It's got to always assume that you're absolutely going to feel a yes and talk to them with that enthusiasm.
Good point. Because we are our dominant thought. We are our dominant thought. If we don't believe, nobody ever bought anything without an exchange of enthusiasm is another way to sort of keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, but the word attitude, obviously A is the first letter of the alphabet, T is the 20th, and so forth. And if you add all those numbers together, that actually equals 100%. And I just think this is just huge. I mean, it just tells us attitude equals exactly the way we want our life to be, very positive and have that 100% result all the time. And finally, the 10th is offering outside financing to all your patients. And again, we talked about that earlier. It's not about because all of your patients are going to use outside financing. In fact, they're not. Many are going to accept your office payment plan. People are going to put it on a credit card, but you don't know who's going to need that. So I really encourage you to offer it to all of your patients because let's be honest, that patient that walked in your office that had the full treatment fee and they wrote you a check or they put it on their credit card. When they walked out of the office and went back to their place of employment, they might have said, gosh, I just went to Dr. Jones and I need to have such and such done. And the coworker says, oh, man, do I need dental work done, but I can't afford it. Simply by having you offer an option to them that sounded affordable, they're going to turn to their coworker and say, well, you know what? I could have made monthly payments with Dr. Jones. It was just great. You should give him a call. And so a patient who paid you in full can actually refer another patient because they heard you offer all the options that you had. So offer it to all your patients. Don't judge a book by its cover. And it's so easy. I'm sure that everybody on the phone has actually had a time where they looked at where the patient worked, where the patient lived, the car they drove in, the insurance they have, their appearance. I'm going to be honest with you. I was a huge creature, and I'm embarrassed to say that I looked at women's handbags, and I thought, oh, great handbag. She doesn't need financing. Again, we just assume people have all the money in the world, where in fact, don't judge a book by its cover. And this just takes me off to a story that I want to share with you. And I want to stress at the very beginning that this is not a true story, but it's a story that someone shared with me a couple years ago. And honestly, when I was working in the practice, I wish that I would have known this story. And this little story goes like this. A lady in a faded gingham dress and her husband, dressed in a homespun threadbare suit, stepped off the train in Boston and walked timidly without an appointment into the Harvard University president's outer office. The secretary could tell in a moment that such backwoods country hicks had no business at Harvard and probably didn't even deserve to be in Cambridge. She frowned. I want to see the president, the man said softly. He'll be busy all day, the secretary snapped. We'll wait, the lady replied. For hours, the secretary ignored them, hoping that the couple would finally become discouraged and go away. They didn't, and the secretary grew frustrated and finally decided to disturb the president, even though it was a chore that she always regretted. Maybe if you just see him for a few minutes, they'll leave, she told him. He sighed in exasperation and nodded. Someone of his importance obviously didn't have the time to spend with them, but he detested gingham dresses and homespun suits cluttering up his outer office. The president, stern-faced with dignity, strutted toward the couple. The lady told him, we had a son who attended Harvard for 1 year. He loved Harvard. He was happy here. But about a year ago, he was accidentally killed. And my husband and I would like to erect a memorial to him somewhere here on campus. The president wasn't touched. He was shocked. Madam, he said gruffly, we can't put up a statue for every person who attended Harvard and died. If we did, this place would look like a cemetery. Oh, no, the lady explained quickly. We don't want to erect a statue. We thought we would like to give a building to Harvard. The president rolled his eyes. He glanced at the gingham dress and the homespun suit and exclaimed, "A building? Do you have any earthly idea how much a building costs? We have over $7.5 million in the physical plant here at Harvard." For a moment, the lady was silent. The president was pleased. He could now get rid of them. And the lady turned to her husband and said quietly, "Is that all it costs to start a university? Why don't we just start our own?" Her husband nodded. The president's face wilted in confusion and bewilderment, and Mr. and Mrs. Leland Stanford, my Stanford, my at all times for my system to just lock it, just locked.
And they went all the way to the West Coast.
Yes, to travel
draw
to Palo Alto, where they established a university that bears the name for a son that Harvard no longer cared about. So you can easily judge the characters of others by how those treat who do nothing for them.
Great.
So, yeah, it is. And so I'm actually, there we go. Boy, that just took a minute there to jump on. So again, I want to stress that that's not a true story, but it really just has such an impact because I think it really says a lot about how we think about our patients. People from all walks of life need and want financing. As you look at this group of people in this picture, this is who's walking into your office every day, meeting people, needing treatment. These are people from all walks of life, and you don't know what's going on in their world, so make sure that you've got the options available so that they can have the smile that they want and that they deserve. This is interesting, too. Did you know that medical bills are prioritized fifth when money is tight? So think about this. When the car breaks, when something happens and there's only so much money in the bank to pay, medical bills kind of go to the bottom of the row when other things need to be paid, and you do fit in that medical bill segment. So let's talk about using outside financing in your practice. One thing that we often hear from many people, and I hear from offices, I'm not sure we need or I'm not sure we want outside financing. It does cost a little bit to offer that. Well, I really like to say is don't step over dollars to pick up pennies. Because keep in mind, if your office is being paid in front, you're not going to have collection issues. I don't think I've ever talked to a team member that said to me, "Oh, I can't wait to go to work tomorrow because tomorrow I get to make collection calls." It just isn't something that any of us love to do. It's so much nicer to keep your team focused on production and growing the practice instead of chasing money for work that's already been done. And keep in mind that your patients really want financing because they want to have that payment that's going to meet what's going to fit within their budget. So make it available for them. You want to remove, the goal is to strictly to remove that financial barrier. And there really are two types of outside financing programs. There's an extended plan, and with both plans, there is no initial payment. But on an extended plan, this is where your patients pay interest. So this is going to allow them the opportunity to have a lower monthly payment, but you want to make sure that they have fixed APRs or an annual percentage rate, something that's going to be fixed and stay the same through the life of the loan and not have any risk to them of paying retroactive interest rates. The payments are never going to never going to change. And again, let's just compare that to, as we talked about earlier, kind of like that car payment. This is my investment. This is what my payment's going to be, and I know that I can afford this. The cost is slightly lower to the practice on the extended plans, and this is also a great way to create incremental volume. Again, that patient that came into the practice thinking they just needed some simple work done, found out they needed more, and also found out that they could afford it. And the cost of the practice is typically the same or less than what you're giving them if you're giving a payment in full courtesy. That's what TIF stands for. Now, we do know that no interest plans can become very popular among patients and practices. And again, there's no initial payment, and typically anywhere from 6 to 24 months no interest for the patient. You want to make sure that you're offering your patients a safe, kind plan that doesn't have a retroactive penalty rate if they make a late payment. And this is really important for them that you know that they need to make those monthly payments, that they understand that, but yet if they don't, they're not going to be charged great big fees at the end. The fee can be slightly higher to the practice to offer these programs, but again, they're very popular. It can also make a difference in the patient starting treatment with you or leaving your practice and going elsewhere. So what about interest? I'm sure when I was talking about the plans, the extended plans that offer interest, you probably thought, my patients aren't going to pay interest. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I felt the same way. I thought back many years ago when I worked in a practice that there's no way patients were going to pay interest. Or in fact, I found out patients didn't mind interest if it was something they needed and something they wanted. Because guess what? People pay interest for other things when they want to purchase something that's a need or a want purchase. As long as it's affordable, as long as it's low, and as long as it's a fixed rate that's not going to change for them, that's safe, they're going to go ahead and pay interest. Again, keeping in mind that there's exactly.
That's why breaking it down to monthly, as you mentioned, is so important. People think in terms of how much cash I have on hand and how much I can afford to spend on a monthly basis, because that's basically, people are paid monthly or biweekly, or in any case, that's sort of how we all view our lives.
Well, exactly, and I know that I can start the treatment now when I need it and when I want it versus having to wait until perhaps I think I can afford it.
Yeah, and what's the chance that I'm going to set aside all that money and build it up? None of us is that good at doing that, really, you know.
All of a sudden that vacation, you know, or that the purchase of the big TV during football season is more attractive than that great smile. So again, I mean, that's where the money goes. So again,
right, and again, they're not paying probably cash for that vacation or that TV either. They're financing it.
Exactly. When patients do use outside financing, they don't have to make a payment for somewhere between 3 and 7 weeks. Depends on the time of the month that they do start the treatment. And this is good because it gives them a little bit of time to get things worked through their budget. And the biggest thing is that they can start the treatment when it's recommended. They're not waiting for it. So again, you know, presenting these options to your patients, let them decide what's going to be best for them instead of you thinking what's going to be best for them. Often what you think and they think are two different things.
That sounds like an opportunity to demonstrate some good faith also. The no payment for 3 to 7 weeks, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you could even help time the commencement of treatment to maximize the period between when it starts and when their first payment is due, which would be another nice service to provide. Yeah.
Exactly. There are dates and individual practices. You can certainly ask us that. We can walk through those dates with you. So now let's talk about some key scripting tips because, you know, as we talked about earlier, it's how we say, what we say, but it's also what we say. So avoid using the word loan. As soon as we say the word loan to a patient, all they're going to think about is, I don't need another loan. Let's talk about it being a flexible plan, something that can fit within their budget. Instead of talking about the word interest, let's say the word low fixed rate. It's more comfortable. I call these the pain words and the happy words. Instead of saying finance company, you know, we work with a finance company, you could say we have a flexible plan that many of our patients choose. Many people choose this. And instead of saying, oh, we have another option, then it sounds like it's the last resort. You can say, oh, we have an option, a flexible plan that our doctor is so happy that we have available for you. It can just make a big difference in how we say what we say. And I always like to compare this to if somebody loses 5 pounds. You know, we can say, oh, you only lost 5 pounds, or oh, you lost 5 pounds. It's the same 5 pounds, but it's how our tone, our inflection, and the words we're saying can make a big difference in how we feel.
And actually, Barb, that's 2 different but equally important points you're making. And while you're illustrating, it's not what you say only, but it's how you say it. The point that I would want to underscore, the 2 points, is that any one word by itself may not make or break a deal. But every word that could be positive and is negative, it's sort of building the case against you. And that's why we want to really be careful with the words that we choose. But the point you just made, too, is that you could say the same thing. Oh, you've lost 5 pounds. Or, oh, you lost 5 pounds? A completely different meaning. It just, I mean, somebody once told me 7 words. I didn't say she stole the candle, whatever. I can't even think of it. But those 7 words, if you emphasize each one differently, the sentence means an entirely different thing. I didn't say she stole the candle. I didn't say she stole the candle. It's just inflection, as you said.
Exactly. It can make a big difference in, and again, how that patient feels. So in walking through some of these things, so for example, if we say a flexible payment plan, this is going to remove the cost as an obstacle. And it's really going to move that conversation from, can I do this, to when can I get started? So it can make a big difference in how they feel when they know that it can fit within their budget. Be reassuring, whatever they choose, whether you're offering payment full, whether you're doing an office payment plan, if they're using financing, it doesn't matter what they pick. Whatever they pick, that's a great choice. Many people choose that. You know, we all like to do what everybody else likes to do. So make your patients feel that way. The smile on her face, I think, is just so contagious, and it's just, you know, she's looking at that patient saying, that's a great choice. And you know what? We're excited about you moving ahead with treatment. You're going to feel better. You're going to have a great smile, whatever the treatment's going to be. Make them really feel good that they've made a great choice in moving forward. If you're doing an office payment plan, your words might sound something like this, or if you prefer to make payments directly to practice, an initial payment of, and you're going to give them the amount, is required. And I really stress to use the word required. Don't just ask for it, because this isn't let's make a deal. If you're going to have an office payment plan, set the guidelines, stick to them, don't negotiate, and schedule it as a requirement. So again, this would be for your optional payment plan. Keeping in mind that your patient has been offered choices. If you're offering them outside financing, perhaps a courtesy if they pay in full, in this office payment plan, let them be empowered to pick what's best for them. And again, office payment plans are great, but they're not the answer to all patients, but it's an attractive option, but it's got to have the requirements. And this is where, and I certainly don't mean to sound harsh, but this is the business part of your practice. You're allowed as a business people to make some requirements, to make some guidelines, because you are in fact running a business. You are in fact allowed to get paid. So what happens when the fee is questioned? You know, people go for second opinions. This is the one time where you can absolutely praise your doctor, praise your team, and praise your practice. Because believe me, you can say things about your doctor and your team and your practice that the doctor can't. You can absolutely sing their praises. You've got to make sure everybody in that practice feels, or every patient feels, like they are in the best practice. You're going to get the People's Choice Award. You're the #1. And, you know, this is actually something that I challenge you all to do at another team meeting, is what are the top 3 reasons that someone should come to your practice? If a patient asks you that tomorrow, could you answer it? And if you went around and asked everybody in the office, could they answer it? So this is a good team meeting discussion to talk about the top reasons why people come to your practice. You've got to know this and you've got to own it, because we are at a time when people do go get second opinions, and they want to know, you know, why is your fee slightly higher than somebody else? Help me understand why. And it really often has to do with what's going on in your practice. So I think this is huge.
I do too. When we coach our team members, we talk about arrows for your communications quiver. And it's just a matter of, and if you really want to make an impact, understand the difference between attributes and benefits. And you may be getting to this, so I won't delve into it too deeply. But the other thing is, if you want a story to stick, if you want a benefit to stick, tell a story. And I challenge my teams, which is never difficult, to say, do you have a personal connection here? Do you think this doctor is good at what he or she does? And they always nod and say, yeah, I do. I say, why? And just a little bit of probing, they can always reveal a story either that they've experienced directly as a patient or one that they've observed firsthand. And that's the key. It's, as you said, people have choices, and people like to be with a winner. If you can communicate a personal experience that illustrates how great this practice is, you're more than halfway there. If you don't do that, you can use the exact same script. You can master the communication, but you don't have the believability, the feeling, the gravitas to get people to say yes. So I'm on board with this.
And as you're talking about these top 3 reasons, and you're talking to your patients, and the storytelling is absolutely perfect, but 3 key words that you can help your team in talking about this are the whole theory of it. I'm sure you've all heard it, is feel, felt, found. So when a fee is questioned, you can look at that patient and say, oh, you know what, we had another patient, who felt the same way you did. But we found that, and that feel, felt, found can really help you in talking to those patients. But again, this can be, these 3 reasons are just so important, whether it's your technology, whether it's the years of experience of your doctor, your years of experience of the whole entire team, continuing education that's been done. There are just so many different things that you can talk about with your practice. Sterilization, your state-of-the-art sterilization, just a hot point that can make a big difference that really make your practice stand out over and above other practices. If I had one slide that I could talk about, and that's all, this would probably be the one. I think this can make a big difference in your practice. And at the end of your scripting tips, this is huge. You can close a fee presentation by simply saying which option will work best for you. And this is when you need to stop talking and let that patient respond. Now, I could change these words. I could say, will one of these options work for you? And what am I doing? I'm opening up a can of worms here. Nope. Tell me what else you got hidden in your bag of tricks. So it's which option will work best for you. Stop talking and let them digest it and ask you the questions. And this is again where you have your, where you're going to help your role playing and what possible questions could they ask and be prepared to make those answers. In most offices, the financial coordinator and the treatment coordinator were the very outgoing people, were the people who love to talk the most. And this is sometimes kind of hard for us to do, but again, this is that point, very simply, which option will work best for you, and turn the table to them, and you can absolutely at that point in time see exactly where they're headed. This would be a great line for you to write down. So what's the opportunity? What's the opportunity if we make some changes in our practice? What can we actually do? Well, if we started 1 additional case per week, and by the way, I do know that there's 52 weeks in a year, but I'm giving you 4 weeks off. And that case was $5,000. So maybe every other week we did a $10,000. The average case is about $5,000. 1 additional case per week, that's it. We just generated almost $250,000 of additional production and cash flow in our practice. That is not small change. So this is a great way for you to help grow your practice by making some small changes, helping those patients move forward with treatment.
Small change, big dollars.
Small change, big dollars. As I'm winding down, and again, I've been in dentistry for a long time, this was actually the philosophy that I lived by in our practice. I actually live my life this way. Every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion, or it's going to be killed. In real life, it doesn't matter whether you're a lion or gazelle. When that sun comes up, you better be running with a very positive attitude, knowing changes are in the horizon every day, because nothing, and I mean nothing, remains quite the same. That's where I end. I want to say thank you. I do want to point out a couple of things on the slide before I turn the phone back to Danny with some questions. I've listed my email address here, as well as the Lending Club enrollment address and the phone number. And if you mention this same webinar when you place your enrollment by October 15th, it's got a nice little American Express gift card for you. Pretty timely to do some holiday shopping.
I'll call you tomorrow, Barb.
Danny, do you have any questions that our folks have brought to us?
Quite a few. Thanks very much, Barb. That was great. I really, this is fun, obviously, for me because it's not very far afield from the coaching that we do too. But it's about connecting with people. People especially who attend these webcasts. I know they either run or work in practices that are above the cut, above the well above average in terms of clinical proficiency and commitment to their patients' care, health, overall well-being. And the key is having the means to bridge the gap, or to bridge from offering to acceptance. And I think that's where I know what you talk about can be so instrumental, because affordability is one of the 4 P's of the marketing mix. Well, you may notice that affordability begins with an A, not a P, but it's really interchangeable with price. The price of something is a big determining factor in someone's decision, and price is synonymous with affordability. So with that, let's dive in, because we did get quite a few questions here. The first, in no particular order, well, yeah, the order that I received them, is how do my patients apply for financing, and when is the best time to do so?
So patients can apply for financing. There's actually a couple of different ways, and I'm going to take that back to practice and say it's going to be what's comfortable, because every practice is different. So a patient can apply to practice by phone. They can apply, you can hand them an iPad and they can apply, or if you can sit down with them face-to-face if you've got that great relationship and actually place the application for them, or you can pick the phone up and do it by phone. Or if you've got that patient that's just undecided and not sure what they want to do, they can certainly apply at home on their own as well. Just making sure that you're giving them the right tools.
You just give them some paperwork to take home? I'm sorry, Barb.
Actually, you just give them a website. Again, you can give them a website and a phone number. So again, everybody's used to doing things online. It's a pretty quick, simple process.
Yeah, and this comes with practice too, is reading the patient and seeing some people want to be led and helped, and others are more independent or maybe less comfortable and want to do it on their own. And that being able to read the patient and understand what the best approach, it comes with practice, but of course it never hurts, and it's easy to just offer them the options and say, and here are the ways you can do it. What works best for you?
Right. It also has to depend on the emergency of the treatment. If we're going to start that treatment right away today, it's an emergency case, and we know, yes, we want to get something done right away, we can do it. So again, there is not a right or a wrong way to do that. It's whatever is going to be best for you within your comfort zone and for the patient within the patient's comfort zone.
Great. And I got a couple of variants on this one. Can you make available the patient fee presentation form you showed earlier in your presentation?
Can I make that available? Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you reach out to us, we can certainly give you a sample of a presentation form. Absolutely.
Cool. I thought you'd say that. I just wanted to make sure. All right, next question. When presenting treatment, do you actually say dollars after stating the amount?
I'm going to say, in my experience, I did not use the word dollar. I also did not like the word thousand. I would rather say 4112 than 4,000. So no, I don't think it's necessary, because people do know that it's dollars. Although I question, or I make sure that your patients understand, because I did talk to an office at one time, and those of you on the phone will laugh. They at one time said $19.95. Well, I don't need to say what that patient thought. It was $19.95.
I've got the same story, Barb. When I was in high school, I flipped Oriental rugs across the street from the high school. That was my job. They're stacked and very heavy, and I would flip them for the customers. And a woman walked in and got to a rug and said, how much is that rug? And the salesman said $29.90. She said, that's a great deal. I'll take it. And she gave him $30. Mm-hmm. And it was $2,995.
So given that, that's why I think the use of a written payment option form is so vital, because when you're putting down the $29.95, you're going to put .00. So the dollar sign is going to be on the paper. You're going to say $29.95, but they're going to see .00.
Right. I agree with you. This is just another opportunity. It's not necessarily a positive or a negative. It's a neutral or a negative. I think saying the term that the investment is $41.12 instead of it's going to cost you $4,112. That's like slapping somebody left and right. Like you're talking to them, and it adds up.
Exactly.
It gets people uncomfortable. Okay. Well, I think we know the answer to this one, but the question is, will all my patients be approved with outside financing?
Well, I would like to say yes, but the answer is obviously not yes, it's no. Credit is credit, and so there are some guidelines that the patients need to fall within. But I certainly would not discourage an office if a patient says, I don't think I'll be approved. I certainly would encourage them to have them apply anyway, because what they think is not good credit is because they were late on their cell phone bill last month really is okay. But yes, there are cases where your patients will not be approved. But keep in mind that an outside financing company wants to approve your patients. So if an outside financing company is not approving them, there's a reason why. And so I would be cautious as to what you do within the house. That's a good red flag for you within the practice as to what you want to do.
Can you offer any kind of a ballpark? Like, what is the typical acceptance rate for a practice, if there is such a thing?
You know, that's just like a very large playing field. You know, I could talk to one practice who would say, oh my gosh, almost all of my patients that apply get approved. And then a practice sitting next to them will say, well, no one gets approved. What could be a difference in a practice who's offering financing to everybody and a practice who's offering financing as a last resort? So there's so much misinformation there that it's impossible to say this percentage of people get approved and this don't. So that's why the recommendation is give everybody the option.
Yeah, that's a valid point, because if you're saving it as a last resort for only the people that are in the worst financial straits, then obviously your acceptance rate is going to be lower.
Exactly.
And you may be doing yourself and your patients a disservice in that respect.
Right.
Do you offer help with the initial conversation with a prospective patient who calls, for instance, asking about how much a crown costs? This was like tailor-made for me. In other words,
So
I think, okay, you understand the question. This is someone who's not yet a patient. Just can you use this to help encourage the patient to come in?
Well, you know, again, if you're sending out a new patient folder or a new patient information about your practice, you could certainly include information, a brochure about outside financing. So, you know, if the question comes up on the call of a prospective patient of affordability, the person can certainly say, well, we do have options available for you.
Yes, you know, this sort of overlaps with what we do, because we deal with price questions and second opinions and are you in my plan questions all the time. And essentially after we've gone through the preliminaries of showing, as you said, showing the caller that we care and that we're competent and knowledgeable, we use verbiage like, that's obviously important. I will tell you that we're committed to not letting affordability get between our patients and the care that they want and deserve, and that's why we offer flexible plans. And then you ask another question, but at least you're not just throwing a price out or saying we don't quote prices over the phone, which is just setting yourself up for an adversarial conversation. So I mean, I think this is huge. And when somebody calls to get into, even before they've even walked into the office, obviously price and affordability are an issue. And with just a turn of a phrase, again, after you've gone through the preliminaries of getting their name, using their name, introducing yourself, using the inflection that you've spoke about in face-to-face communications, but doing it on the phone, I think you're far more likely to have this person actually come in and receive the examination that leads to the case presentation. So,
you know, absolutely. And again, as I said earlier, we have a very educated group of people who are coming into our practices now, and in their head, they might have a ballpark of what they think the fee is going to be. If I could put my Lending Club hat on for just a minute here, within the Lending Club software, and this is available to patients in your practice, there's something that's called Check Your Rate. And this is the opportunity for a patient to answer a few questions and find out what they're approved for. It does not impact their credit until they actually use the loan. So they could be pre-qualified before they come in the door.
That's really interesting. I thought that, yeah, people risk having their credit affected just by virtue of an application being submitted. So you're
Yeah,
saying
this
we
is a
don't,
soft,
we stop short of the application.
right, right. It's a soft pull, so it doesn't impact their credit. It tells them what they can be, what they're approved for, what rate, without impacting that. So again,
It's called a soft
take that
pull.
hat back off, soft pull.
Interesting. Okay, cool. What do I do or say if my patient is not approved?
You know, that can be, you know, a very touchy situation for the team members. And first of all, the patient that doesn't get approved typically isn't surprised. You know, again, you can let them know that they're going to get a message that they haven't been qualified. But you can offer them, let them know that you still have your office payment plan available. You can also say to them, is there someone else in your family, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, someone, you know, because we know this is important for you to have done that would help you with this. So make those suggestions and, you know, let them know that you're there for them when the time is right for them to go ahead with the work.
Right. I think that's an important point. What you want to do is end the conversation with an air of respect that the person is not being judged, and if anything, yeah, you offer options and say we're here when you want us, when you're ready, and if you can find, you know, if you can take advantage of some of these other offers, maybe check with a loved one, you know, or let us know if your situation should change. We really look forward to being able to help you. And then they walk out, you know, yeah, and I think the other point you raised is good, is that they're probably not going to be surprised. If, you know, they'll probably be pleasantly surprised if they are approved. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, which we hope is the case. How do you compare with the other major dental patient financing programs, e.g. Care Credit, Wells Fargo, Chase Health Advantage? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Barb, but I don't think Chase offers patient financing anymore, do they?
No, Chase left the market a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. They did leave the market.
Yeah.
So, you know, how Lending Club compares is in some very positive ways. It's a very kind, safe loan for your patient. It's a very transparent loan in that we make sure that the office is and the patients are both very clear on the types of loans they're getting. We offer more flexibility, and what I mean by that is on the extended loans, the patient's rates start as low as 3.9, and they're based on the number of months the patient selects as well as the patient's credit. And second to that, the rates are fixed. And that to me is what is just huge. And what that means is once the patient gets that rate, they keep that rate for the life of the loan. So if they make a late payment, which that can happen, it's called life, we actually only charge them a $5 late fee on the extended loan. And they again don't lose that interest rate. They don't have a retroactive rate or something that gets very high.
I think in talking with one of your colleagues, there's also a difference, and you'll have to make it right. I'm not even sure I got the terminology right, but don't some of the other firms offer a retroactive interest fee? Is that what you're talking about now for missed payments?
Yes,
that they
yes, and that's I'm going to talk about the no interest. So what Lending Club Patient Solutions offers is what's called true no interest. And what that means is we take the treatment fee, we divide it by the number of months of the promotional period. So let's do easy math here. Let's say it's $4,800 and you offer 12 months no interest. We're going to take that $4,800, we're going to divide it by 12 months, and we're going to bill your patient at equal monthly payments of $400. With that patient being billed at equal monthly payments, they're more apt to pay it off in that length of time. At the end of the 12 months, if they haven't paid it off, they're only charged interest on the balance, not the full amount back to day one. There are no retroactive rates. Danny, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
So again, this is a very transparent, very kind, safe loan for your patient.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that seems only fair to me. I'm not sure why people, well, I guess it's an incentive to keep to the payment plan. It's always easy to sympathize with the consumer, but I guess businesses need to predict their cost as well, so there's probably a reason. But, well, I don't know. You're able to get around it, so I think that's
also
a lot nicer. And that's the thing, you
Mm-hmm.
got to know the options, and then you can really make it clear that, we hope you won't miss a payment, but if you do, just rest assured that you're not going to get zapped with a huge, penalty, basically.
Exactly. And that can be very expensive because at the end of the day, if they get that retroactive rate, guess what? They don't get mad at the bank. They get mad at the doctor. So
well, that's
again,
right. They shoot the messenger. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Shoot the messenger. So again, those are some of the high-level pieces that make a difference. So again, we would certainly I'd welcome an email or a call from any of you to discuss this one-on-one.
Great. Okay. How does insurance work with, or I might add parenthetically, against the process?
Okay, so as far as insurance, gosh, Danny, we could probably do another whole hour and a half on insurance. And I guess with that I would say by it's to accept or not to accept assignment. That's the question. So, how it works is if you accept assignment of benefit, which means that the insurance company is going to pay you, you can take the amount of the expected insurance off the top of the treatment plan and finance the balance. Simple as that.
That's easy.
If you don't accept assignment of benefit, then you can certainly let your patients know that you're going to file the insurance for them, and you just do the financing, the payment plan, shall we say, on the full amount, and then when those monies come back, they just come back directly to the patient. I like to say to the patient, it's kind of like getting a rebate. So so either way.
Gotcha.
It's a very simple
and
process.
Either way can they either finance less or they get forced savings. They get some free money.
Exactly.
What seems like free money. Of course, it isn't free.
Exactly. And I know there's a lot of conversation about accepting and not accepting benefits. So that's a discussion that you've got to make within your own office to just make the decision what's going to be best.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Barb, for a really excellent presentation. I wasn't surprised. You and I just met for the first time at the AOSH meeting last week, which was great timing down in Dallas. You're kind of all over the map, aren't you?
This time of year, it's the season. Yes, it's a pretty busy time, but just so many great meetings this time of year.
Yep, but that's what you do. You do it very well. A lot of other people enjoyed, as I did, getting a chance to sit down and chat with you and get better acquainted before we had this time together today. And it was awesome. I appreciate you offering to work with the attendees to determine how best to structure their patient financing program and just being available. And I'm sure that many of our attendees will take you up on that. Now I'd like to ask everyone to please mark their calendars for next month's webcast, which will be on Wednesday, October 28th at 7 p.m. Central Time, when our special guests will be Drs. Gary M. and Jim Poole, MBA, who will deliver an aptly named presentation entitled, "Stop Working on a Moving Target. Relaxed, cooperative patients are just minutes away with NewCalm." NewCalm you may not have heard of yet, but you will. It is a technique and a protocol that's used by governments and professional sports teams and dental practices to help people achieve a relaxed state, which with some pretty wild technology. And the science behind this is awesome. And I can tell you, too, that from personal experience, it works. I've been using it for the last several months. And I still can't say I'm like a type B personality. I never will be. But my wife thinks I'm a little bit more livable. So I hope you'll sit in on it. Omer Reed is a follower and a user of the service, and I think you're really going to be intrigued by it. You'll be impressed by the science and more impressed by the positive effect it can have on your patients and your practice. So I hope you won't miss that. In the meantime, this is Danny Bobrow, as always, thanking you for your commitment to practice perfection, and thanking you once again, Barb, for a great presentation. Have a great evening, and goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.